Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 17th Data Quality Network meeting. I am Greg Hess. I am joining you from IU13 today. Welcome. Just to wrap up what's been going on since our last meeting, we did have the Data Summit in Hershey on March 24th, 27th. It's nice to see last smiling face there.
There's one on.
Had an open mic. March 8th, we had our makeup from the February DQN meeting. If you were not able to make that, there is a recording available. We went over safe schools from an LEA perspective with incident coding. We also did the new DQE rules with drill templates. We have PIM's draft to the table 9A and table 13 as well. So that is available if you need to review that. And today, to download any of the materials or to ask a question, you can go to dataqualitynetwork.net. We do have some handouts that are not posted yet. They will be posted there momentarily. To ask a question, there's the URL, the tinyurl.com DQN APR 19Q. So today we will have start off with PDE with ESSA and FRPAI updates. We'll go into PAsecureID best practices and then finish up with data privacy and security. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and turn it over to Shane at IU15 and PDE.
All right, good morning, everyone. So today we have actually a little bit of an update on the DQN website. We had Brian and Sherry listed as the presenters, but we actually have Brian and Abby today here from PDE. So we'll let them introduce themselves and get started.
Hey, thanks. My name is Brian Campbell, and I'm the Director of Curriculum Assessment and Instruction at PDE.
My name's Abby Rose. I'm a project manager with the division or the Data Quality Office.
And I think as they said a little bit earlier, we have some discussion, some updates around ESSA and the Future Ready PA Index. That's what that kind of awkward abbreviation is all about. So a handful of updates for ESSA and Future Ready for you. First few slides are some genuinely quick updates. One thing to remember is that 2 additional items will be scored next year through the performance designations. The rigorous courses of study indicator and the industry-based learning indicator. So this year's those indicators appeared in the kind of gray font, the gray heading throughout. They were not scored because simply they were new indicators and we had no baseline data. Okay, and we didn't want to approximate. There was an ability to approximate with past data, but we really didn't want to do that in the ESSA plan and bind ourselves to something with the federal government that we hadn't fully fleshed out. So last year's information will be used as a baseline, and we will score those 2 indicators. We will score those with what we call the performance designations, the performance standard, which is simply a ranking of the scores, and then we score at the 25th and 75th percentile. The 75th percentile cut becomes the 2030 goal. Okay, those goals then are locked in. Okay, we do not quartile because that would constantly determine that 25% of the people finish in the bottom. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to set a 2030 goal mark and let everyone progress out of that bottom 25%. So we will reset those or set those performance standards. The one performance standard, though, that we are going to reset is the career standards benchmark. And this is, again, only a one-time reset. It will not be set over and over and over because we do not want, that's why we're not using averages and scoring. We don't want to predetermine quote-unquote winners and losers. But we are going to reset it based on the 6 pieces of evidence because this is the first full year of implementation. Last year it was normed on a baseline of 2 pieces of evidence. wasn't a lot of variance in that because that's a relatively small target to hit. So we wanted to norm it over a sample size with a little more variance across the way. So those are scoring updates for the index. There's also going to be some informational upgrades. We are going to expand the amount of occupational, the data available for an occupational CTC. It's one of the things we very much wanted to do when we created the index, when we moved from the Act 82 performance profiles. Occupational CTCs did not even get a page or did not even get a report on those because of the way attribution worked. So we very much want to get occupational CTCs data, and we want to get some of the credentials and things that are offered in those occupational CTCs to flow back to home schools as well, those two places to be able to share data. So we've increased the ability for that kind of reporting on the index next year. So this year, if you were an occupational or a part-time CTC, you really only had attendance data attributed to you. We're going to expand that out, and you'll be able to see some of the industry-based learning, career readiness learning, and some of those other indicators expanded back to those schools. We're also currently looking at both stakeholder feedback and some feedback from USDE through the ESSA plan revision process that began in March. We're still working through that, to look at chronic absenteeism and to make sure that we are measuring catching absent students and not catching other subpopulations that are marked absent, things like that. So we are reviewing exactly how we score that and exactly how we put some of that information together. There's not going to be a lot of specifics because we've kicked a few things around that we have pulled out of our stakeholder feedback, but we are going to see if we can work on that and maybe tweak either the calculation itself or probably more likely some of how we put that information into that calculation. Which gets me to a short presentation I do want to talk about specifically on the chronic absenteeism indicator. And some of this is pulled from data. If you were at the data summit, there were a lot of individual sessions on the career readiness indicator. There were a lot of questions on the chronic absenteeism indicator. There were a lot of questions about chronic absenteeism. So I do want to kind of move through a few things that we pointed out that we found in the first year of reporting on this, and not just the districts reporting to us, but us gathering that and reporting that for federal accountability. The one thing to remember is, and I know I've said this a lot, but I think it bears repeating because I'm surprised often still getting the question. Really the difference between chronic absenteeism and regular attendance, which is what we report now, as opposed to average daily membership and average daily rate, okay, which is what we used to use. And we still calculate that for reimbursement, okay, but we used to use that as your accountability rate too. The reason is we're going to a student level, okay? We're taking attendance to a student level. There's a positive statistical correlation between the amount of time you're in school or receiving direct instruction and how well students do. And that's kind of commonsensical, okay? You have to get this information if this is the information you're going to work with and be assessed on at some point. Simple way to think about it is if you've got a room full of 20 kids, okay, and each kid misses 5 days, right? That gives you a rate, and there's no reason to believe any of those kids are academically behind. Remember, this is an on-track indicator, okay? If you have a room full of 20 kids and 18 miss 3 and 2 miss 12, okay, you can come up with a similar rate, but there's a reason to believe 2 students could be off track, okay? Remember, that's all we're really trying to point out in the calculation. Doesn't mean they are, certainly not a guarantee, okay? There are students who miss, a number of days with a medical illness or something and come back and pick it back up because they were in a good spot when they left. But there is a reason to believe that those students, there's a statistical correlation with those students and their performance, their academic achievement, okay? And one of the things that we're seeing, is really looking at the underlying causes, all right? There are on occasion, there are students with a serious illness or a serious medical condition that can't come to school and can't get direct instruction. We understand that. No one's target is 100%, Okay, this was not set in that every student is going to make 90% or more of their days. We understand that. But what we are looking at is students that are missing those days, or missing enough parts of days or portions of days that they're falling behind in the instruction. And a lot of that is looking at some underlying kind of social causes, community causes, things like that. Partnerships with local social agencies, your county social and mental health groups. I can tell you one of the strategies that we've really seen work in the group in Allentown has gotten together. They've even pulled in local pediatricians and orthodontists and got them all to agree to schedule meetings for their kids at 9 in the morning so that you're not overlapping that middle of the day and missing a half a day if you leave and come back. Like really kind of reaching out to people and understanding. I don't think all the time, and I have a real good slide about this. I think all the time people understand what is a normal amount of school to miss or what is an acceptable amount of school to miss. Okay. In the workforce, if you have an appointment in the middle of the day, you often go back. A lot of kids like to kind of take the whole day. Students who miss, so the definition of chronic absenteeism, we talked about this, missing more than 10% of the school days across the academic year. So for a student who would be enrolled in your LEA for the full 180, that's 19 days is when they start to be chronically absent. That is more than 10%. So they have received 89% or less of the direct instruction available to them. Again, we believe there's a reason to think that that student could be off track. It's not guaranteed, but they could be by missing a significant amount of their seat time and direct instruction. It's weird. I don't think I set it up that way, but okay. This is not new information. Okay, it is the same information that you've always reported to come up with your ADM and ADR. We're just applying a student level calculation. We're still looking at your days present and days enrolled. Okay. The key to the accuracy of this information is how you transfer that information from your SIS into your PIMS report. Okay. Everyone has local attendance policies. Everyone should. You set your local attendance policies in a way that is beneficial to your district and manages your kids. And that's fair. That's how it should be. But there are folks who report in half days, quarter days, periods. We had one school count homeroom and after school and lunch, and they were reporting in 11ths in their SIS. That's fine. And they had a real good reason for that because they were working on a truancy issue. Understand though, when you translate that, all we can take is days. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is look at your local policies, and not just does it say what you want it to say, or is it accomplishing what you think the policy accomplishes. Also make sure it's consistent. Okay. We know that local policies vary among LEAs, but what we find a lot of times is, and it's through no fault of your own, you have one person doing this, a lot of times one non-educator in a building. All right. I would suggest that within buildings in an LEA, especially between grade levels, maybe between your high school and your elementary and things like that, make sure your policies are being applied uniformly and that you're coding things the way they are meant to be coded or the way you mean them to be coded. That inconsistency and that entrance into your SIS, when we pull two very specific columns, okay, sometimes it's a translation. It's things lost in translation. Okay? When do you withdraw a student? Okay, when do you, the difference between a student who is ill, okay, and a student could have a serious illness, but their days ill and out of school would be absent. As soon as they receive homebound instruction, they're receiving direct instruction, they're present, okay? When do you make that switch? Is it, the first day the substitute shows up? Is it the first day they turn in work? Is it not till the board president bangs the gavel and approves it? I've heard all three situations. Well, there's going to be a different gap in the amount of time that you report that, okay? Again, it's a local policy. All you need to do is be comfortable with it. But you may want to revisit those policies and make sure that they're being uniformly applied and that they have the intent you want them to have, okay? The formula, we're looking at students, right now we're looking at students that are enrolled for 60 or more days, That gives you an opportunity to, again, we want to look at attendance, not enrollment. So a lot of times you have that student that sort of phantom enrolls in your district or phantom unenrolls. You hear they're not, coming back, but they're still on your rolls because things have to happen, like the shot records, and you have to pay your lunch fines and your library fines. And, I would love to tell you every student that unenrolls from a PA school on a Friday re-enrolls on a PA school on a Monday, but that's not the case, okay? So we don't want those kids to count, all right? We only want the kids to count that you have time as an LEA to provide an intervention for that student or gather the data and understand yourself that this student has an attendance problem, okay? So the 60-day cap is to kind of rule out those weird, funky enrollment issues that aren't honest to goodness attendance problems, okay? But once you hit the 60-day cap, it is 10% of the days you are enrolled. Okay, so if it's 61, they can miss 7. But the 7th day makes them chronically absent. You move up to 180, the 19th day. So it is 10%. And it's simply those two columns divided, your days present and your days enrolled. So it's something you can track with some degree of precision, a pretty safe degree of precision. You may not get it exact, but you can track in your own district by knowing that those are the two columns we're going to pull. We do know the trends in attendance vary by grade levels. Pre-K and kindergarten have higher rates than elementary. Younger students have a hard time articulating, I don't feel good. Could mean a lot of things. They may be ill, they may be tired, they may be in an emotional state. There's a lot of reasons they could say that to their guardians and stay home from school, or say that to their teacher, and you send them to the nurse, or you send them home. It's not that that's wrong, it's just something to know. It's to know that that is a target area. Rates of chronic absenteeism are lower in middle and elementary than high school, okay? You can do a real unofficial scientific experiment. Look how many Christmas gifts your elementary teachers walk out with, and look how many your high school teachers walk out with, okay? We know that elementary kids are still, as a general rule, engaged and wanting to please and happy to be there and having fun and things like that sometimes. We also know that elementary parents tend to have a higher level of involvement. Some of that wanes as you get into high school. Plus, when you get to high school, you have mobility issues. There are students who can, tell their parents or guardians they're in school, check themselves out of school, leave school on their own. Elementary and middle school students are a little more dependent on either busing or public transportation. Most often kindergarten, pre-K kids are driven, and high school and kids can drive themselves. So you have a mobility issue a lot of the times. We do know also that students from lower income households are more likely to be chronically absent. A lot of that has to do with they work themselves sometimes to help support. Sometimes they are caregivers for younger siblings, if a single parent, or if it's a low income household and the parents are working odd hours and things like that. So those are situations where you probably do want to look at, social service, what your county offers, what your community offers, what you have through social work and your school available to you, and things like that. Those are some reasons that kids miss sometimes that are not illness related. Appropriate strategies therefore depend on sometimes the grade and age range. The easiest step is often to tie some of those strategies into things you're already doing. If you have any sort of tiered intervention system, MTSS, any type of positive behavior management system, if you're doing PBIS or things like that, those are places you can move attendance into those already existing systems, just like you do some of the academic indicators, and target some of these students that may have this particular background or kind of profile where you start to worry about their absenteeism. Some of the strategies that have worked, besides moving it into your MTSS and your positive behavior management, some things like that, early warning dashboards, you can run a pretty simple report, like I said, with a pretty safe degree of accuracy with those two columns. If you run that at the end of every, run it the 60th day, the 80th day, you can start to kind of build up and see who's hanging around that 10% or more line often enough that you may want to look at an intervention. Is that a time to recommend them maybe through your mass to your guidance, or recommend them to, again, if you have social services available or things like that. Individualized support and case management. Sometimes we do need to work with families. Sometimes home visits from school officials are effective. Incentive policies, like I said, working through your behavior management and things like that. Two strategies that are coming out through, now we engage this work through the Mid-Atlantic Research Association, the REL. The first one is actually coming out of Harvard that people are finding real useful. This slide here is a kind of mock-up of a utility bill. This is a fake water bill. If you look at your utility bill, a lot of the time it shows you how much you use, how much your community uses, and how much the state uses. And this is where we talked about people sometimes, especially parents, don't always know what is an acceptable range, or, well, my kid missed, 12 days of school by Christmas. Isn't that normal? Don't all little kids get sick and miss that much? Probably not, okay? I think 18 to 20-minute showers are perfectly acceptable, but if I look at my water bill, that's not the average, okay? So one of the things they're doing, and this has come from, like I said, some New England type states, this did come through Harvard, is including some of that in absent reports that they print for parents, okay? Here's what right now would be a problem in state accountability. Here's what most second graders miss. Here's what your kid's missing, okay? So, if it is a serious illness, that's one thing, but if, twice a week his tummy hurts a little and he just doesn't want to come, do we have a social issue? Do we have is this a bullying issue, a behavior issue, a self-esteem issue? These kind of things that then we have to involve, guidance, or involve a social service, or look at something. Look at that kind of intervention. Similar thing with a lot of folks are finding, remember that truancy and what you go through with the, the magistrate or your district justice or things like that, that's a function of the Department of Justice, and that's a completely different role. And that's why the days don't match. They are 20 days, not 19, and things like that. That's a very specific problem. And a lot of times we model that letter. Everybody has to send the 5-day letter, the 10-day letters, the things like that. We model that letter after that system. If you look at that letter, a lot of the times it begins with that paragraph with a ton of legalese and those squiggly backward S's that refer to the school code and things like that. Most people, when they start into things like that, shut that off, okay? They're hard to read, okay? I understand they have to be that way because that's an actual legal function of the court system. If you're running a dashboard and you are going to do some kind of warning letters and things like that to your students just about absenteeism, these aren't kids that you think are going to go through the justice system, cutting some of that legalese out and just kind of simply saying, here's some days you missed, here's a state policy, here's our policy, without going through all that, is often a little more effective. Especially, again, if we're looking at lower income households where we have single parents, busy parents, parents that may not have the same level of education themselves, things like that, that highly legalized letter is not always effective communication with home. So that kind of wraps up Future Ready. Updates for Future Ready. We do have a few more things we are working on that we don't quite have enough specifics. So I think this will be if not monthly, an often reoccurring agenda item throughout the summer and things like that. We are going to move on to the newly established ESSA report card, which Abby is going to preview for you. The one thing I want to point out about this, look for an e-message in May. Okay, we still occasionally do the e-messages when we were releasing the index. If you remember, we did each indicator by e-message and things like that. Those should go both to a PIMS administrator and a superintendent. Sometimes superintendents' email jams up. They're busy people, and I absolutely understand that. But if you haven't seen these every once in a while, maybe ask, are you getting some things from the state you haven't passed to me? What's going to come in that e-message is a link and the directions. It is a part of the federal ESSA statute that every LEA from their district website link to their ESSA report card. And that is part of the ESSA statute. So we will send you the link and the directions so that you can post that link onto your district website and link to the federal website and be in compliance. Okay, and that will come to you in May. If I know an exact date before, I'll definitely shoot that out to the IU lead so I can maybe give you 2 or 3 days notice ahead of time too. I don't have this pinpointed that well, but it would be in May. So I'm going to turn this over to Abby. She's going to drive you, steer through the website, and give you a preview of what the ESSA report card is all about.
All right. So that e-message that's going to come out, it's going to say link to Future Ready, because Future Ready is what the department wants to be really the public face of the report card. It's built to be very user-friendly, very visual. That's the one that's going to translate well with your parents and everything. And like Brian said, the e-message will come out. OESE will send it to the superintendents, and then the data quality office will forward that e-message to our PIMS administrators. So on Future Ready, if you were to pull up your school, 21st Century Cyber alphabetically always wins. On the school Fast Facts, and then it is also on the district Fast Facts. If you scroll all the way down, you have ESSA Federal Report Card. So the ESSA Federal Report Card, federal law states we have to have all these data sets together, and it's more of like a data nerd researcher site. And that's why we wanted to keep Future Ready as the face, and that's what you'll link to from your website. But that ESSA link pulls up the ESSA website. And then over here we have the ESSA report card. So the ESSA report card, there's narrative, and then there's the data. I'm going to go through a little bit of the narrative, and then we'll move on to the data. So the first page here has an overview. There's also links to what data sources we currently have publicly available. This is eventually going to be its own page, because we're going to have way too many data sets. It'll look ugly if I put it all in here. So currently, we do link back to Future Ready PA Index because that has the state level or the school level. And then there is the annual meaningful differentiation file, because the main difference between ESSA and how we did the annual meaningful differentiation, it's combined years of data, as opposed to Future Ready, which is just, here's your report card for 17-18. So coming soon, so some data elements still to come. The civil rights data collection, that'll be out before the end of the week. I actually had it, and I was debating last night whether to put it up publicly or not to run it through today. And I'm a huge believer in Murphy's Law. I was like, if I put it out there, it's going to break, and then it won't work. So we do have the English, also the English language proficiency, and then there's also English language growth and attainment. So we're going to do a whole new marketing campaign. Everything that you've seen so far on Future Ready Index is really English language growth and attainment. The ESSA law did state that we had to do a straight proficiency. So growth and attainment, everything that we've done still lives on. It's just getting rebranded as growth and attainment. So that's still going to be used for annual meaningful differentiation. It's still what is compared to the state goal. It's still what's on Future Ready. The only thing that we're changing there is the label. And then for ESSA, when we put up, we'll have the growth and attainment compared to goal, and then we'll have the proficiency, which we get EL student counts and just show the straight proficiency. But that straight proficiency number is way lower, and that's why we wanted to do growth and attainment, because we think schools should get credit as they're bringing their EL students up through the years, rather than just that end, like, oh, they passed the test. And then there's passive participation data that we have to put up that I'm working on. That is one that will not be up by the end of the week. I don't even have that data yet. Things that are eventually coming. So December 2019, we will debut equitable access for effective, experienced, and in-field educators. And then the spring of 2020 is the fiscal reporting, your per pupil expenditures. So I'm gonna scroll up slowly because I was told I have to do it slowly. Up here, these boxes, that's where the eventual data set box will also be when I create that page. The annual meaningful differentiation tab, you go in here, and this goes into detail, has some narrative on annual meaningful differentiation, how it's done, description of exit criteria, your minimum N, list of indicators used, and then your CSI and ATSI schools. The other one from the main page is your goals and interim targets. These are only state level. So when that's another difference between ESSA and Future Ready. ESSA is only, progress towards the state goals, where Future Ready, we did calculate school individual goals to be able to do the blue, green, and red. So these are the charts. You may or may not have seen them before. Actually, you probably should, because we forwarded all the e-messages. So they're just all the state goals. Then we will go to the report card. This thing's in the way, I can't see. I can hide that. So one thing, since this is a small square, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, which will help you see the ESSA dashboard a little better. It's fine being up there because I remembered in Chrome I could change the zoom there. So, and this is the data set, and there's a lot of data behind this, and it calculates it from the school level, rolls up to your LEA and your state level. So the first time you go in and you click on pages, it can be a little laggy, like maybe take 15 seconds to load. So here are the annual meaningful differentiation. These are the 2-year combined, and the narrative. Why I went through the narrative pages, that's where all the explanation is. This is really dry, just the data sets. But you can filter by your districts. You can filter for schools. You can filter by Title I and whether they're CSI or ATSI. And then we move into the assessments. So after annual meaningful differentiation, since annual meaningful differentiation is just at the school level, there is no roll up at district or state level. After that, we do start like assessments. We have a state tab and then a district and a school. But here's where you see there's a lot more data on ESSA than we did with Future Ready, because we wanted Future Ready to be, able to look at and easily digest. When you start looking at all the data required for ESSA, it becomes more difficult for people to digest this information. But we do have the various below basic, basic, proficient, advanced, and then the growth. growth and participation rates. And growth we only had calculated for all student at the state level. And we did not have growth calculated at the district level. So on the district page, you'll see that that one's blank. And then for the individual schools, we did have growth for the subgroups because it's the same data that we used on Future Ready, and those were what was available on Future Ready. And then we have how the state did compare to the goals. So, and that is, the achievement is proficient and advanced as opposed to just proficient or advanced. And you'll see yes or no on whether they met the goal. And then we also had to throw the NAEP data on here, which is just one set of 8 data points for the state. It's not at the district level, it's not at the school level. But that was just a requirement of ESSA. I'm gonna go, let's see. I'm gonna change it to 90 to maybe help a bit. We'll see how it looks on the other tab. So district, same tab, adds a district filter. And it's laid out the exact same way. Ooh, I do need to be down to be able to get to the bars. But this looks exactly the same, doesn't have the NAEP data, and then you'll see it at the school level too. And again, same thing, just add schools. Then we move on to the secondary measures, and that is where English language proficiency will eventually go, but it's graduation rates, regular attendance and career standards, and English language proficiency. So again, we have the state tab, then we have districts, and English language proficiency will go right in here. And we also have the school tab. And then for secondary measures, the goals are on separate tabs because there's already enough data on those tabs. Go to Future Ready PA. So the question was, can someone provide a link to the ESSA dashboard? Go to futurereadypa.org, go to Fast Facts, and it's down at the bottom. So pull up any school. You can go to school Fast Facts or district Fast Facts, and the link's at the bottom. So Brian's trying to share Shane real quick. So for the goals right now, we just had the graduation rate. We will add EL growth and attainment. So this is going to move. There's going to be 3 tabs for goals again. There's going to be state, district, and school, and they'll have grad and English language growth and attainment both on each page. And then there's the college and career measures tab. So in between here is then also where the CRDC tabs will go. So CRDC, we had to pull in the school climate indicators off there. So it is the data that you guys supplied for CRDC. It's the federal public use file. And that has things like the in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, incidents of violence. We just take that file, add everything together, and show it as a number at the state, school, and district level. So those will go in there. And then at the very end is college and career measures. And you see state, district, and schools. So, and then all of these data sets will be made public. Like I said, we're going to do the data set page, and those are all in QA. We're waiting for some updates before we actually make them public. So, all right. Now it's question time.
All right, great. So we will pause for just a couple of minutes and allow people to submit questions via the Q&A form, and then we will jump right into the questions. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started actually with the Q&A session. It looks like we just have one question so far from IU23, so we'll go out to MCIU.
Great. So what will be posted for LEA? Will this be a summary that district fulfilled the requirements by grade? What exactly will be posted on the site for career standards benchmark?
Okay, so it is just a roll up. So basically across all your schools, and then also if you had any students at like a 000 or a 999 location, but it's basically, it's one number. It's not by grade, but it's just add up all your denominators, add up all your numerators, divide. Does that make sense?
Total number of yeses, total number eligible.
We're still trying to figure that out. Just a second.
So I'm trying to understand, we're saving all of our benchmark career assessments district-wide. Is this related to that, or am I thinking about something entirely different?
I don't know why you would be what you're saving.
Yeah. You're
So
thinking
by every grade has required career archives that we need to save their portfolio. Is this related to that, and how is it related to it?
So,
and how do you get that calculation on what we are doing at the district? Thank you.
So it is related to that. So you save that for your students as they go up through, and you report that at 5, 8, and 11. Okay? You report them at 5, 8, and 11 as yes or no of hitting the benchmark of 6 pieces of evidence at the conclusion of 5th, 6 different pieces at the conclusion of 8th, and 8 different pieces at the conclusion of 11th. All right? So this number, if we roll it to an LEA, would be all of your yeses from 3rd, 8, and 11 would be 1%. All of your yeses from 5th, 8th, and 11th divided by all of your 5th, 8th, and 11th graders, eligible 5th, 8th, and 11th graders. It's one number. So you save that to report yearly for Future Ready. And on Future Ready, it's by, the pages are by building. So you're showing probably only your 5th graders in the elementary, or if you have a K-8, your 5th and your 8th go into the same building or whatever. But you're showing the yearly total for your building on Future Ready. Your ESSA number on the ESSA report card would be all of the eligible test takers would be your denominator, all of your, or in this case, all of your eligible portfolio builders would be your denominator, and all of your yeses would be your numerator. Any grade.
Okay, we have a question here from IU10. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, the question here is the electric bill attendance graphic sounds like a good idea to reinforce to our parents that excessive absences are not the norm and may help our district reduce the number of chronic absentee students. Does the state have a draft of this and or numbers that would show the state average or countywide average, et cetera, available to schools?
We don't have a draft yet. This is brand new. But the numbers you would want to use, you could get off Future Ready, because the state average would be on Future Ready. It's in the grid of the 3 numbers. It would be the middle line. And also the other number you would probably want to use is the target for blue, the acceptable goal, which this year was 92, 93, no, 80.
No, that was for red. But it's the other number.
It's the other number, yeah. It's the 2030 goal, which is on the website. If Abby calls it up, she can find it. But the state average and the 2030 goal are on the website, and we haven't built a template yet, although this slide show is out there. The slide deck is out there, both from the Data Summit and today. They're going to put it up, so you could easily look at that and throw that together. You'll probably beat us to the punch.
Yeah, and we don't have anything at the county level.
Yeah, county data. So
the statewide average on Future Ready is 85.4. Now, I will say the statewide average on Future Ready is all the public schools. It's all the Future Ready schools. They do not exactly match the statewide average on ESSA because ESSA is for everything. Right. And then the performance standard's 94.1. So that's the goal that the state would like to get to.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Abby.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, great. I believe that wraps up this Q&A session. So what we'll do here is we will go ahead and take a break. We'll actually do a 15-minute break, and we'll actually put up a timer with a little bit of a countdown to keep everyone in line. And then we'll go ahead and we'll jump into the next presentation from PDE. So thank you. Okay, welcome back everyone from the break, and a big thanks to Greg for his timer. That really helped everyone. So we're going to move on to the next presentation on PASecureID. And so with us we have Melissa and Michelle from PDE. So we'll hand it over to them to go ahead and give us a quick little introduction about what they do at PDE, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Melissa Kanyar. I'm a business analyst for data quality at PDE.
Hi, I'm Michelle Key. I'm a researcher and data lead for the Office of Child Development and Early Learning.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about what's new with PAsecureID, and we'll go into a brief history of PAsecureID. It started in 2006. They used to have Social Security numbers. Obviously, we can't use Social Security numbers anymore, so we came with one unique number for PAsecureID. The PAsecureID unique number starts with pre-K through college. Sometimes a number is issued with PAsecureID when they are actually some students that are born. When a PAsecureID is created, it should be created one time only for a student. You shouldn't have multiple PAsecureID numbers for a student. If that does happen, you should contact the help desk and issue a ticket to get that straightened out. Also, if a student comes from a different state, sometimes don't automatically assume that the ID is that you should issue a new ID. That student could have been in Pennsylvania before, and the student possibly could have an PAsecureID in the system already. So just because it came out of state doesn't make it that they are a new student to Pennsylvania. So the purpose with PAsecureID, you always want to search the ID to make sure, the student's name, to make sure that the name is not in the system already. And also, if a student is either homeschooled or in a Christian-based school, if they would happen to have services through the home school, through the LEA, they would then be issued a PAsecureID. Only if they have a class within that school district. Just because they're homeschooled and just because they're in a Christian-based school does not make it that they are issued a PAsecureID number. Those students usually don't have one, but if they would say take a class or they would need special services through the LEA, then you would then issue them a PAsecureID. When you enter online, there is 2 ways you can enter a student through PAsecureID. One would be if you have one student, I usually say less than 10, you would actually go into enter online, which is where the arrow is pointing, and you would then mark down all the information for that student, the first name, if they have a middle name, if they have a last name. If you have more than 10 students, I would suggest that you would do a batch for that student. Usually your SIS in your LEAs have a system where you can get all your students together in a batch and then upload it through the upload file. When you enter a student one time through the system and you know the student, say you have to correct the name, maybe the first name spelled wrong, the last name spelled wrong. If you need to correct that student and you know the student has a PAsecureID, you must put it in the PAsecureID field. If you don't enter that PAsecureID number in that field, you will automatically create a duplicate ID for that student. A lot of times when you are looking at the student, make sure that the first name, the last name, and the date of birth and the gender is correct, because it will not pass the DQE rules when you upload your files through the system. When you are, say a student transfers out of your school district, please share the ID with the other student when you send your files to the other school. It's so much easier that the school knows that for them to have the ID right away instead of trying to search it and, oh, I don't know, maybe the student wasn't here, or maybe they were in pre-K and they were gonna go to kindergarten at a different school. Please share the, when they transfer the files back and forth, you are allowed to transfer that number along with it. So that helps with that we don't have duplicate IDs or shared IDs in the system. When updating a record, make sure that you use the legal name. Legal name is court documents, and if they were adopted, medical records, if they don't have any birth certificate. If we suggest that you do follow to get the legal name for a student is have a birth certificate. If they don't have a birth certificate, try to find a court document, if not medical records. I understand that parents have multiple children sometimes and they don't write the right birth date, they don't write the right name of their student, they get it mixed up with their birth date. So when the parents submit these records, make sure they also have either a legal document, some sort, for that student. Make sure the birth date and gender are correct. If they're not, you're going to have to go in online and change that. If you do change like the birth date, and I'll get that later on, please make sure that you add a note, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The name, if it's spelled incorrectly, you'll have to go in there and update it. If they do not have a first name, please use NFN, no first name, if they don't have a first name in their legal document on the birth certificate. When you do change items such as if they're adopted, or if the birth date is wrong, please put an add note, which is where the arrow is pointing. It's really little right now, but please click on add note. When you click on add note, you'll get this screen here. And here's where you would put in if the child was adopted, if the child for transgender students, please don't put in transgender student in the notes section. Please put in name correction only. We don't need to know that they're a transgender student. They are allowed to change the first name and the gender. They cannot change the last name. The last name has to stay the same unless they physically go and get a birth certificate and change it with the birth certificate. Other things to put in notes here is if the student got married, you want to change their last name, then you put saying that the name was changed. Twins are a really common problem with PAsecureID and sharing their identities back and forth. A lot of times we have them, parents will have their first name like one letter difference with twins. If you can go up into add notes for each student and say this is a twin, her twin or his belongs to this ID. So you want to put the ID number of the other twin so it doesn't get messed up back and forth. Another thing is, and what we're finding right now is a lot of students have the same first name, middle initial or middle name, same last name, same date of birth, and they're totally different students. I just had one the other day, a couple weeks ago, that the student had the first name, last name, same middle name, same date of birth, and one was a twin and one was not a twin, and they were totally different school districts. So please, for that instance, I would put in parents' names in this. At the data summit, there was one LEA that came up to me and says, I have 4 students with first name, last name, and the same date of birth. That's where you would put if they have a middle name, or start putting in parents' names in there so you don't get them mixed up. Get the right student for each ID. When you are searching records, please remember that put in as least as possible to find the student. I usually suggest 2 to 3 letters when you're searching first name and last name. Now I understand if you get Smith, William, Rodriguez, Jones, those you're going to have to put more into search because you're going to get a whole slew of them. The list would be really long. You can also add, the last resort I would say is add the birth date when you're searching students to find out if they're in the system. Don't put middle names because it doesn't search it. It won't find it. So say an LEA changed the name and didn't put the middle name in. If you put a middle name in, it won't bring the student up for you. When a student is at an LEA and has a PAsecureID ID number, please don't add another new ID number. This creates duplicates. We have over 16,000 duplicates in the system right now. And I keep track of all this stuff. Last fall, school districts were putting 1,000 in additionally, adding duplicate IDs. There's only 2 of us right now that only deal with PAsecureID numbers at the state, and we alone can probably get 25 to 3,000 done in a year. That's how long it takes to do our research and get everything done. So when you're talking another 1,000 added on to that, it's kind of difficult to ever get that number back down. So if you would actually find a duplicate ID, contact the help desk, issue a ticket, and myself or Stephanie will take care of that duplicate ID. You can also do the RA account, email. We do work, we do it by order. We don't, just because you email doesn't make it yours is going to get done first before you do a ticket. It's date stamped and time stamped, and we do go in order. Please remember, if you are, your PIMS is, you have to submit your PIMS on Friday by noon. Please don't ask that you want this duplicate taken care of Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. If we have 30 or 40 in a day, you're probably it's gonna wait. We just don't have the manpower to do all that. So please remember, if you do see, this was another question too I had the other day. If another LEA can report a duplicate ID for a different school district, that doesn't have to be your student there. So if you find a duplicate ID and it isn't even your student, you can report it, because we can still look into it. Because I have pages and pages I keep going through, Excel spreadsheets to go through and with duplicate IDs. Also, if your student is at an IU, please share that ID. Sometimes an IU will issue a new PAsecureID number for that student, and we don't want that because that creates duplicate IDs. So make sure that you share, if your student is attending an IU, please share that with your local IU.
So we go under the assumption that most kids get a PAsecureID earlier than them entering into school, because we assign PAsecureIDs at Octel. So all students who are participating in our state-funded pre-K programs, early intervention, which is special education for birth to 5, and our subsidized childcare program. And the reason why we do that is so we're able to, we've done a few research projects looking at children who are participating in Octel program, and we're able to follow them through into PIMS, and then there's a linkage between the kids. And so we've done some PSSA analysis in the past, and then we've also looked at, like last year we had to do something with looking at kids who are enrolled in our subsidy program, and if they're also enrolled in kindergarten, if they're full day or half day. So we've done a little bit of analysis, so that having a common identifier allows us to do that. And our process for PAsecureID is we actually have one person who processes our batch files. And so we have an automated batch that pulls our records each night. So if there's new kids entered into our Pelican is our data system. So if there's new kids entered into our Pelican system, then they get automatically put into a batch file every night. And then someone in our office manually goes through and processes those near matches. And so ours is a little more automated with having that file created, but we still go through the same near match process. And then that file is picked back up. And I did want to add, so on our side in Pelican, except for early intervention, no one even knows that kids get a PAsecureID because it's not visible in our system. It's only visible in our data warehouse. So typically, meaning Missy was talking about that you can share the ID. We are not able to do that because people don't have access to that ID except for in our headquarters. So if you need the ID for a kid, typically you'll call either our help desk or call me. And so we also provide some reports to our pre-K providers so they're able to look at students who previously participated in their program and look at how they're doing on the PSSA, on their IEPs, and grade retention. So that is also a reason why we assign PAsecureIDs. So we have some child longitudinal outcome reports that are available for pre-K providers who had enough kids. And we do have to follow the FRPA rules for suppression. So they're only able to see data if they have more than 10 kids and if the percentages are not 0 or 100. So they do have to, there's some limitations with what they can see, and it's all aggregated data. And this is just kind of a big overview of our Pelican system, and we interact with lots of different systems, both across the education side and the human services side, since we're under both. Our kids actually get an identifier, both a PAsecureID and an MCI, which is the identifier on the human services side. And this is just kind of a visual of what those reports look like. So you can see a little bit, they can see data at the school district, at the county level, and at the state level. And then we break them down to all of the kids, which is the selected population, to those kids that have the poverty indicator in PIMS.
The 4 DQE rules that are when you submit your PIMS data, the first name, that is actually going to change this fall. It will be the whole first name. It'll just not be the first 3 letters, which started in 2016-17 school year. And then the last name the whole last name has to be spelled correctly, the date of birth and the gender. If any of these 4 rules, aren't there, please don't just change it on your Excel spreadsheet and just submit your data just because you have to get your data up by noon. Please go back into PAsecureID and check to see what is in PAsecureID, what's in your SIS. Do a little research before you just go on the spreadsheet and change it. It takes more time. If you just change it on your spreadsheet, it'll take more time later on than if you would do it right away and get that corrected. With the name and the date of birth, please go back and check the birth date. If it's not correct, please correct it on PAsecureID. If another school district didn't use the birth date, just check it to make sure that is, verify it first before you actually change it in PAsecureID. If there is a duplicate, like I said, please contact the help desk and issue a ticket. Also, I go through daily. I do PAsecureID day after day. I find duplicates all the time. And if I find a duplicate and I got to contact an LEA, and I got questioned on this one time by an LEA, he said, I got an email saying that I didn't issue this ticket. Who issued the ticket? I checked my whole school district and found that no one here did it. I'm the one who issued the ticket. That is the only way I can respond back to an LEA if there is a duplicate ID and I have to email you guys back. So there is that was a question. So remember, if you guys aren't issuing the tickets, I issue tickets for duplicate if I find a duplicate ID out there. Remember, no nicknames, parentheses. Please make sure the suffix is where the suffix field is. Don't put the suffix right behind with a comma, right behind the last name. That really messes up our system at PDE also. Remember, junior, senior, second, the third, please make sure you put all those suffixes in the proper field. Oh, my favorite, near matches. I'm sure that's everybody's favorite, what that deals with PAsecureID. Remember, near matches, there's a reason why there's a near match. That means there is a student out there that is similar to the student that you are trying to put in the system during your batch process. Please remember, they don't go away. They sit there until something is done with them. You either take care of them or they're deleted. So remember, there is a reason why a near match came up. If you know that there is a near match, please take care of it. First, look at the last name and the date of birth. Make sure that is and everything matches before you actually click on that number or that name. If you can't find, if you know there isn't a name in the system in PAsecureID and it didn't show up in the near match, there is a process where you can skip that near match and go to your next near match and come back to it and check to make sure that that you have the right student in the system. If there's any problems that you find that you're not sure how to do near matches, there is documentation out there on the PA website. Even when you're in PAsecureID, there's a little, it'll say PAsecureID and it'll say project documentation or document, you can click on that and it'll take you right to all the documents that will help you with PAsecureID. This is the screen that you will get if you have a near match. You can either resolve it or it'll tell you how many duplicates were found. And if you're not sure of the race, sorry, we're having technical difficulty.
Give us 1 second.
Can we try? I think we're good.
Okay, we're good?
I think we're good.
All right, cool. We'll continue then. Thanks.
If you have the race and you're not sure that the race is correct, please don't just assume that's not the student, because they might have not put the correct race of that student in the system. Like I said before, there's three different ways you can deal with near matches. You can either, you have the option of canceling the record. You can actually review and select the record, or you can just go one record at a time too. You don't have to select all the records. There's a box on the left-hand side. You can just check on that and just deal with one record at a time. You don't have to deal with all of them at the same time. Once you've reviewed your information with the near match, the new student you entered is on the top. The student already in the PAsecureID system is on the bottom. So everything that you see on the top is your new student that you're trying to see if that is the correct near match to the student on the bottom. And here also you can, please just don't go through and create new IDs, which happens a lot. That's how all duplicates start. When you can either assign it or you can cancel the record. You don't have to choose those records. The system is trying to give you options saying that this student is similar to your student. So if you verify that the last name and the first name are the same and the date of birth, I would assign that student. There's also in the system, if you would hit, let's go back. If you would hit, you would select the bottom student. And when you select the bottom student, you can look and see there is a match where it says it's 91% correct that this is the same student. And you can verify everything, and it will be highlighted that is different within the student on that screen.
So when you have a near match to an Octal student, we do obviously want you to do the same process. We also realize there's a limitation in that all of the Octal records are identified with an AUN of Octal currently. And so a suggestion I had a long time ago, which might actually be happening in the next couple months, is that instead of showing Octal for all Octal kids, for those that we know the resident school district of, it's possible that we may be able to add that into the file, so it'll give you a little bit better of an idea of where those kids are. So I'm hoping that's a help. We've gone back and forth on a lot of things, and that's probably the only thing we could do to make a change to the way our kids appear. There is some contact information at the end about you can call and get additional information about those kids. You can also contact the PDE help desk as well for PAsecureID, and we'll give you that as well. But we're hoping that that change might make things a little bit easier. And I do have the contact information. So we do have additional demographic information about the kids, where they live, parent information to figure out if it's the same kid. And we're also helping if we can get this change in regarding the school district, might make things a little bit easier as well. And then I just wanted to talk about two things about some practices that we do in Octal. So if we're notified of a closed adoption, what we will do, and I will say that this doesn't always happen in a timely manner, but we will do is we will create a new PASecureID for the student with a new name, and then we actually contact PDE and ask them to retire the previous PASecureID, because on our end, if we're notified if it's a closed adoption, we need to break the link between those two kids. But I will say that we're a little behind with processing those adoptions, so we're not, and then there's a delay with retiring the IDs as well. So it doesn't always happen quickly, but it does happen eventually. And then I just want to add also, when we near match Octal, we go through the same process. If we near match to a school district record, we link to the school district record, but the information in PASecureID does not update. So that was something we had changed a number of years ago, but I just wanted to kind of point that out, that we're not, because I know the data quality on the Octal side is not always the best. We have lots of users in Pelican, and so I just want to let you know that we're not intentionally overwriting records anymore. It does happen rarely in some specific instances, but not as much as it had been before. So I just wanted to kind of let you know we're not trying to steal your kids. We used to have a backlog of our files. That's no longer the case. We have somebody who's processing the files on a regular basis. We are working on some data quality issues on our end, because I said our kids get a PASecureID and an MCI, and we have a huge MCI duplicate issue. And so we are trying to encourage providers to use the legal name and date of birth. As I said, we have lots of users putting data into our system. And so we have everybody from a family provider who's serving a couple of kids to a very large like KinderCare who's serving lots of kids. So our data quality is not the best, but we're working on that. So we do say that all Octal children should have a PASecureID before they start kindergarten. And obviously, if you get a near match to an Octal kid, please select that. We do some cleanup, or at least notify PDE to do some cleanup when we're processing our daily files. And if we happen to see kids that we didn't near match to, then we do try to do some of that cleanup as well.
And just to add to her too, please remember that when you have kindergarten kids coming into kindergarten, please remember to, that doesn't mean they don't have a PASecureID. You do have to search them. Please deal with the near matches. And, or because sometimes those students were in pre-K before, and if they were in pre-K and they're getting funding for pre-K, they do already have a PASecureID. This is new for PASecure. This is supposed to take place hopefully by July. We're going to cross our fingers for next year. There will be a new modification form. When there is data on a duplicate ID, I have to issue, if the ticket isn't already issued, I will issue a ticket to notify the LEA that we will take the data from the retired ID, which is your data, and move it over to the active ID. You do not have to go and resubmit your data. Please remember, don't resubmit the data that you submitted on the retired, the ID that we retired. We will move all that data over for you. And it could be years of data. It can go back to 2008, 2009 that we will move all that data over. This is what the new modification form will look like. It's basically all the same information, just cleaned it up, made it look a little user-friendly, nicer looking. With the new PASecureID, we're going from version 9 to version 10. This is what, and I only got one screen from the people that are the programmers. this is what the new screen's going to look like. Your add note now is going to be on the right-hand side. It will have tabs. The master record there'll be 3 separate tabs. It'll have master record, a history tab, and a associated retired ID tab. If this is all I have right now, as soon as we get any more information with what the PASecureID is going to look at, we will let you know. The same DQE rules will apply. Like I said, starting next year, it will be the first name. The whole first name has to be spelled correctly, or it won't pass the DQE rule. And this will all take place in July. Questions?
All right, great. We will go ahead and pause for just a minute or two here, and we'll allow people to submit questions via the Q&A form, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A session. All right, great. Looks like we have a couple questions submitted via the Q&A form, so we'll go out to IU3, to Jane for the first question.
Having trouble unmuting. So I put this in there only because we have, students in our IU and they come from all over the place, and I find crazy things when I go to upload that various things were changed on PASecureID and that wasn't relayed to us, and or vice versa, incorrect information like change of gender, spelling of the last name, different things like that. Is there any way they could make it more difficult to make changes and have them verifiable before changes were allowed? I understand you guys already have a lot to do, but maybe this would eliminate some headaches.
Okay, for that question is, yeah, please don't use any special characters. Okay. Yes, I would recommend that you do verify the birth certificate before you make any changes to PASecureID. Also, if there could be court documents too, that's legal too, that they might have changed their name. So you want to make sure that you want to verify the birth certificate, legal documents before you change anything in PASecureID.
I guess I'm wasn't really asking that on my part because I do that, but isn't there a way on your end that you cannot allow a change until the supporting documents are reviewed by you?
Go ahead. I'll get down so I'm on camera. No.
My boss.
When you think of how many PASecureIDs we have to resolve issues, we cannot make our system dependent on someone at PDE having to say yes every time somebody's correcting a PASecureID. There are 1.7 million public school students in Pennsylvania. It would put everything at a standstill. That's just not possible. What we ask is that you please be sure that you are accurately assigning a PASecureID. Don't create a new one unless you know. And please, the one that really gets me is the hot potato game. You believe it's your student's ID. Another LEA believes it's their student's ID. And every time somebody goes to upload a PIMS record, you go into PASecureID and change it to match. Please don't do that. That's where you need to contact us. Talk to the other LEA, figure it out. You'd be surprised. I was shocked at how many names that appear unique are not the only child with that name, and then they share birthdays too. So it can be difficult. Talk to the LEAs, talk to PDE, but no, I'm sorry, we cannot make a PASecureID change dependent on PDE pressing a button to approve each one.
And also when that change is taking place, I will make the decision. You may or may not like it, but the decision will be final, especially when it's back and forth, And it has a lot, there's a lot of things that play into that. ESSA and the, where the data, like what year the data is at, has a lot to play. It doesn't matter that you were the first person that got that ID. It doesn't matter anymore. It has to do with a lot of grade 9 entry date. There's a lot of factors in this, and how much data we have to move from one ID to another. So yeah, you may started that ID and you were probably correct the whole time, and then someone came in and messed it all up, and now their data is going to keep that ID and you're going to supposedly lose your ID. It happens. I have to make a decision, and the decision will be final then.
All right, great. I believe that answers that question. So we'll go to IU2 for the next question.
Our question is, should only US alphabet be used for the PAsecureID student names? For example, we have a student who has a legal document that shows the last name has a Sedalia in it. And so we're concerned whether or not we can use that within the actual name.
No, you can't use special characters in the name. Unfortunately, DRC and our system, it doesn't work with our system at all. So, and that little, I don't know what's called, the little asterisk or the little comma above a letter, we can't use that either. That has to be, all special characters do not work well with computer systems.
All right, great. Let's go to IU10 for the next question.
Could you share the email address that whenever a district comes across a duplicate and who they should contact?
This one, okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, it was one of the last slides, and I think it just, I guess I didn't hit the return on the computer here. But you can contact the help desk. That's actually the first place you should probably contact. That's 800-661-2423 or help at PIMS, PIMSSUPPORT.org. That's PIMSsupport.org. Or you can contact the RA account, which is RA-PAsecureID at pa.gov. And it has other for Pelican, and has myself and Michelle's email also. But like I said, we base it on in order, by date, and by time. So if you email and you thought you're the first one and there's a bunch of tickets that we have to get done first, it all depends on what order they come in. So we do work in order. And we'll share that. Can we share that at the end? Yeah, we'll share that at the end.
All right, great. Let's go to IU21 for the next question.
Hello. The local community college changes the information on PAsecure when the student is still in high school to incorrect data. We'll turn around and have Richard identified as gender female. Any guidance on handling this situation?
Yeah, if you have a problem with a local college doing that and you guys keep fighting back and forth, please contact the help desk, and usually I contact the college and try to get it straightened out, or make sure, or you can contact the college too, it's totally up to you, but we try to make sure that the data is correct. Now remember, when they change the information on the enrollment side, that has nothing to do with your PIM submission on enrollment in PAsecureID. That is just information saying, actually helps identify us where the student went and what school district has put the information in for that student.
All right, great. Let's go to IU5 for the next question.
Hi, ours isn't a question, just a comment about our hopes that Ocdel process for PAsecureID improves soon. We feel like there are far more school-age users in PAsecureID than there are MAWAs, and it's been troublesome from the beginning with getting correct PAsecureIDs for early intervention.
Can you be more clear about which part of the process?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, except that it seems like there are so many delays in actually securing a PAsecureID for a child, and then when it comes time for 12.1, resolving the duplicates seems to be an issue, as we got our verification reports this year to verify final data, and along with the message it said that Ocdel was still resolving duplicates of PAsecureID numbers, which was in late March, which felt like, how are we supposed to verify data and have our exec sign off of it when the message said that some of this may change because Ocdel's still resolving duplicates.
Okay, thanks. I just need to clarify what specifically. So for early intervention, there was an issue a couple of years ago with there being a delay with kids getting IDs. We think all that has been resolved. So in early intervention, a child gets an ID when their plan has been approved. So as long as that's happening, that should put the kid in our file and they would get an ID within a couple of days. I know we've had some issues, some system issues that have prevented kids from getting ID in a timely manner. As I said, I think those are resolved, but if that's still an issue, then we need to know about that and we need some specifics because we've been trying to look into a lot of those. That's the only thing I can think of as far as we do have some. I know usually need to clean them up. I mean, as Missy was talking about some examples of kids that end up being twins and they have their name is off by a letter, or kids that look exactly the same first name, last name, date of birth, and they're not the same kids. So we do some of that cleanup manually around when it gets closer to 12.1. Somebody gives me a file and I sometimes have to go in and create new IDs, but other than that, I think we should be in a better place with the early intervention. But I said, if you're seeing specific issues, then please let somebody at your contact person at Ocdel know that so we can look into that.
Okay, thank you. And just the other part of that was we have an LEA who has a lot of difficulty when they get the kids in kindergarten because either through infant, toddler, or EI process, the information that's in for that child is often a nickname, it's not their legal name, and so that creates difficulties for them because it appears that it's not a match when they have an upload. And I know from linking kids in Pelican, we often, say this isn't right, it needs to be this, and then we're told, well, the parent has to go change that at the DHS office or whatever. And, a lot of times the parents are just not bothered to go change their information. And it feels like that initial record, the way it's put in, if it's not correct, and then we're told that the parents have to change it, that could be part of the problem.
And I can just add a comment on that. So that is the case. So our records come from multiple places coming into Pelican because we're connected with other DHS offices. If somebody enrolls a child in another DHS program and that comes through us, then we don't have as much control over the information on that record. If it's in our pre-K program and a provider put that kid in, we can update, and I have done that in the past where we can update the information. It really just depends on where that master record sits. So we'll try, I said if there's examples or problems, I said we can try to look into it to figure it out, but we can't always fix them if they came from another DHS office and that's their record on that end. but we do try to clean up some, at least on our side.
Thank you.
All right, great. Let's go to IU 14 for the next question.
Hi. So it was brought up, it seems that schools are doing this process sort of two different ways. One is where they get the file from the SIS, load it to PAsecureID, resolve near matches, get a file back, and update their SIS. Or they're just going into PAsecureID, searching the kid, getting the PAsecureID, and then manually updating their SIS. Is there one preferred practice? Is it better to do that upload process and go through it that way, or is just searching the kid and grabbing his ID okay as well?
So whichever way you want to do it is fine. When you upload or into PAsecureID, like I said, you'll get the where it'll show you your matches, and you have to deal with those matches. That's where the problem starts. So when you upload, a lot of times people don't want to deal with the matches. They just want to hit add new, add new, add new. And you need to deal with those matches before you finish the download process in PAsecureID. It really doesn't matter which way you want to do it. It's whichever works for your school district. But like I said, you have to deal with the near matches first.
So I guess just to follow up on that, they're not if they're just going and searching the kid and they find the kid out of district, they're not doing even that download process. They're just grabbing the ID. So
right, you can do it that way.
So if they're just getting the ID, they're not doing any near match, then they're just looking for it and pulling it. So
right, you're just searching through the system. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a first name, last name, birthday. I search it. Oh, here's this PAsecureID, and now I put that in my SIS. So you're saying it's better to do probably the upload, download, and do the near match then?
It all depends how many kids you have. Like I said, if you have more than 10, I would definitely do the upload process. But if you only have one or two children, it's just as easier to search it.
Okay.
Through that whole upload process to find the PAsecureID.
Thank you. And then the follow-up to that is then just searching doesn't update the school on record. So does that matter?
No.
Okay.
No, it does not. No, it does not change any of the school information. No.
Okay.
Just search a student. The only time it changes is when you upload the students in the system with a batch file.
Okay.
That's when that enrollment section, and I'll say this again, has nothing to do with your enrollment of your students in your SIS and what you submit through PIMS. That enrollment is just information only. It has nothing to do with your enrollment status in PIMS.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, great. Let's go out to IU 27 for the next question.
Okay, we thought that at the beginning of your presentation that it was stated that changes were allowed to first name and gender like by the parent. But do we need legal documentation to make those types of changes?
So when I said about the first name and gender, that was through transgender students only. That wasn't, so when a student comes to you and says, I want to be whoever he or she wants to be, you are allowed to change the first name and the gender. You do not create a new PAsecureID. And when you do that, you go up to the add notes and you put name correction up in add notes. So it doesn't look like Johnny became Susie, the name wise, and it's not a shared ID. So we know it's not a shared ID. And that's only for transgender. You do not need legal documentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great, we'll go out to IU 29 for the last question.
So our question was similar to 27's. We just were wondering, About the diploma then not matching the birth certificate, if there's no legal documentation, is that okay?
You're talking about transgender students?
Yes.
That, no?
They need to talk to
That, when they're transgender, it's not our call. We can't make that decision. It's up to the student or the parent.
So it's okay that they don't match then, I guess?
Correct. You'll need to talk to your solicitor about that for transgender students.
All right, I believe that wraps up this Q&A session. So we want to give a big thanks to Melissa and Michelle for presenting. We really appreciate them taking the time to come out here and do that. We will just pause for a second as we get set up for the last presentation.
I was talking, but not to the group. Local question here we had first. Want to make sure everyone's ready. So good morning, everyone. My name is Vaughn Murray. I'm a information technology coordinator here at CSIU, and I was asked to give a short little presentation on some data safety and data security. In my role, one of the biggest things I do is support the migrant education program. So we have to deal with both local, state, and federal rules for data security and privacy. So what I've done is taken a 90-minute presentation that I've given at some state migrant conferences and squeezed it down to 15, 20, maybe 25 since we're a little early, but I'll still try to get everyone out early today. So thank you for sticking around for this. So what we're going to talk about. First of all, what is private personal data? I know a lot of this is going to sound redundant and boring for you guys because you deal with this, but my goal was that if you can at least pick up one or two pointers that, ooh, I didn't think of that before. So hopefully there's something good for you. So what is private and personal data? I believe most of you know that. What is a data or security breach? And what is your role in keeping data secure? Some best practices in data security and password management. I want to give you a link to some resources and summary and questions. In case you don't catch all this, this PowerPoint is on the DQN website attached to the agenda. You can always go back and review it. So my goal here is by the time we're done is that you understand what a data security breach is, including some of the definitions. Know what is defined as personally identifiable information or PII, and know your role involved in data security. That's really the biggest point here. And understand some best practices and procedures that you can implement if you're not doing it already to best protect data. So, what is personally identifiable information? PII. You will hear that acronym if you haven't heard it before. You want to register that in your acronym table in your brain, because if you deal with federal systems or other things, people will use the term PII and not always define it. But according to the federal government, is any information about an individual maintained by an agency or an organization, and we are all employed by an agency or an organization, including any information that can be used to distinguish or trace an individual's secure identity. Social security number is a big thing, and that's why we don't use it anymore in education. But we also do track date and place of birth, you know, a mother's maiden name. It could be biometric records. I don't think many of us track fingerprints or you know, retina scans, things like that. But is any other information that can be linked or is linkable, such as medical, obviously educational data, financial, or employment? So those are the key terms in what PII is. Some other more examples: any sort of name, last name, first name, mother's maiden name, an alias that they use, obviously any type of government IDs, the social security number, the driver's license, passport, status information like with their address, their employment status, educational status like special ed, IT, gifted, etc., health status, telephone numbers, cell phone numbers, home numbers, business numbers for parents, and anything that can be used to link to the items that we listed above, such as their date of birth or their place of birth. Bottom line is anything that you think is personal to someone, you want to protect. Why take the risk? Better to be safe and protected. So, Big thing here is all educational staff, and we are all educational staff, have a legal responsibility to protect data. I think everyone should be familiar with FRPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And I note here, watch later, because we don't have a lot of time today. I'm not going to take the time to do a 5-minute video, but it's a really cool video if you haven't seen it. But just want to understand, make sure everyone understands what FRPA is. You know, it protects the disclosure of PII and educational records and governs who has access to that data. This is a very good video put together by the Office of Information Protection, which will be a link to their general website at the end. But this link here, which you can get from the PowerPoint, has a nice little video. Is very well put together if you haven't seen it before. But it's a good thing to review on what FRPA is, or if you get a new staff member and you want to try to explain what FRPA is, it's a really good thing to take time and view. So, we've talked about this PII. Okay, we have it, we use it, we need it for what we do, but what is a data breach? That's what we have to be concerned about. So, data breach means that some sort of PII has been lost, stolen, you know, someone hacked your computer, disclosed, meaning you gave it to someone that shouldn't have, or somehow was otherwise exposed to either someone who is not authorized to have it, or they have it for some unauthorized purpose. And we'll get into some more about this. So basically, yes, we've got this information, we need it, it's legitimate, and you may need to share it with some people for valid reasons, but you can't share it with the wrong people, or you can't share it with someone for the wrong reason. I'll give you an example of that. So you have information on someone in your district, and yes, you share it with someone, but maybe there's some part of their record, such as their health record, that the other person has no legitimate reason to know. They should only have access to the information that they need to know. So on a need-to-know basis, how's that for a way to look at it? So how can these data breaches occur? And everyone thinks about electronic, but I'm going to say that's not necessarily the most important thing. Storage issues. So if you're saving things on your computer, on a network drive, somehow if somebody gets access to that, that is a data breach. You know, you put it on a flash drive or a CD and you lose that. That's a data breach unless the file or the entire CD is encrypted. So, you know, people may tell you, back your files up, put it on a flash drive. And that's great if it doesn't have PII on it. But if you've got student records on there and you back it up to a flash drive, you've got to make sure that that flash drive is always secured. Either the files on it are individually secured, password protected, encrypted, or the device itself is. And if you're not sure how to do that, you need to talk with your IT staff to learn how to do that. But one of the big things people don't think about are paper files. So if you have a folder with child's information on it or family information, and you leave that laying around and someone gets access to it, that's a data breach. So remember, any type of PII should always be locked up in a secure office, in a secure file cabinet, depending on if multiple people have access to that office. Obviously, if where your office is in a public or a semi-public area, you need to make sure things are locked up. If you're not there to personally be that barrier to keep other people from getting to it, people shouldn't be able to walk in and look at your desk and see Susie's record sitting there. And we'll talk about doing that with your computer as well. Transmission issues. This is something people don't think about. You should not be sending sensitive information without encrypting the email. So don't send PII in just a regular email to someone. If anyone intercepts that email, they now have that PII. So if you send any sensitive documents without encryption, that can happen. And one of the other way people say, oh, I'm not going to use email, I'm going to send it by fax. Well, if you send it to a fax machine and that fax machine's sitting out in a lobby somewhere, how do you know that it's gotten to the right person, not fallen into the incorrect hands? So if you're sending a fax, make sure that the receiver has secured the fax machine before you send any type of PII. processing it. You're sitting there at your desk and you happen to be a person that is also the receptionist for the superintendent. And the public comes in there, and the way your computer's situated, someone can actually be looking over your shoulder and seeing things. Or if you're someone who sometimes works out of the office and you're working at a coffee shop or something, and you're looking at PAI and someone's behind you, you want to be careful of things like that. If you're out in that situation as well, one of the other risks are using public Wi-Fis. You go to a coffee shop or something, and if I want to be someone looking for information, obviously I'm probably not caring so much about our information. I'm more looking for bank account numbers and things like that. But always be cautious if you are in a location like that and you connect to some kind of Wi-Fi. I could sit there and I could set up a fake Wi-Fi network that says coffee shop free network, and most of us don't even think about that. We just connect to it. And what we don't realize is that we could actually be connecting to something that someone's controlling and recording everything that I transmit, and then going back and deciphering it. So that's why if I ever use a public Wi-Fi, I make sure that I'm not sending any sort of unencrypted student data, and I'm not sitting there checking my bank account. So this is something to remember, not just for what you do for your work, but hopefully this helps you in your private life as well. Don't leave your computer unlocked. Unless you are in a private office that you know that there's no way anybody else is coming in there. If you walk away from your computer, even for 2 or 3 minutes, you should lock your computer. There's several ways to do that. If you have a Windows computer, the easiest way is hold down the Windows button, press L, it'll lock it. Some people say, well, I have a screensaver that comes on after 5 minutes. What if I walk in there after 3 minutes? So rule is, if you're leaving your computer, just going to the restroom, you're going over to talk to one of your coworkers, anytime you get up from your desk, lock your computer. It only takes a second, and it only takes 5 seconds to unlock it when you come back. That way you can rest assured that you have protected the data to the best of your ability. Do not leave files or reports unattended. Once again, something laying on your desk, someone can get to that and they have access to information. And if you're getting rid of an old flash drive, a CD, paper records, a hard drive in a computer, now most times your IT departments handle this, but anytime you're getting rid of things like that, you need to make sure that things are purged. Yes, your IT department would handle if you get a new computer. Hopefully there's policies in place in your LEA for that. But if you're getting rid of an old flash drive, if you think there's sensitive data on there or a CD, the best thing is destroy it. That way no one can get access to it. Cut the CD in half, break apart the flash drive. If you're not sure that it's what to do, talk to your IT department. They should be able to help you. Hopefully that all makes sense. I know we have questions at the end here. So what happens if you suspect there's been a data breach? And there's different ways it can happen. The first thing you want to do is contain the breach. If you think someone is connected to your computer and is getting information, pull the plug. Turn off your wireless, whatever you're doing. Get disconnected from the internet. You want to stop that path as soon as possible. If you think something that you've been in, the password has been compromised, make sure you change those passwords. Protect any uncompromised information. If you think you've got a bucket full of information and only a cup of it's been compromised, make sure the rest of the bucket is protected. You don't want anything more. These next two, follow your local protocol, but in general, I would make sure that my audio issues, my end or their end? Maybe because I'm moving the mic as I talk. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If not, just let Letty know in the back channel. So what you want to do is contact your immediate supervisor if you think something's wrong, and following your local protocol, make sure that tech support is aware as well, because you want to get everyone working on it as soon as possible. You want to make documentation of everything as best you can. What happened, who may have been involved, including what students may have been involved. If you think you know who the culprit might be, do that, but whose data was done, okay? Keep the mic close to my mouth. When it happened and for how long. Like if you think your computer was compromised for 2 months, document all that stuff and provide that to whoever needs to know according to your local protocol. So, what is the best way to safeguard your data? Think about this to yourselves, since I can't really ask you guys all. But what is the best way? Think about this. Best way is you. You know, what you do or don't do is the biggest thing that can protect that. Your diligence, making sure you're careful what you do, what you don't do, how you do it is the most important thing. People think, well, I've got antivirus or anti-malware on my computer, or my IT folks take care of this stuff. No. Do not rely on that. Not to say that those aren't good things, but do not rely on that. What you do and what you don't do are most important people. You know, there's people out there trying to get access to data, not necessarily your kids' educational records, but because they're looking in general for anything, you know, especially, you know, they want financial gain really. But since we have a right to protect this and people are looking to get any sort of data, we have to be careful. They're always coming up with new ways. So what the antivirus or the anti-malware or whatever is installed on your computer may work great today. Someone's going to come up with a new idea tomorrow. So you need to be diligent, and I'll give you some specific things. One thing to keep in mind, think about any time you click or look at something. And if it doesn't seem legitimate, call the person and report it to your tech team. You know, if something, you get something, and I'll get into some specifics with this, from someone that you know and trust. But it says, why is this person sending this to me? And I'll take this time now to give an example. When I was the DQN coordinator for here, I sent mailing lists to probably 100 people. And the group had decided we wanted to send it clear to everyone so that, oh yeah, I need to know this person's email address. Wasn't my computer. Somebody on that mailing list in one of our districts had their computer compromised. So someone had harvested that email list. Ooh, here's someone that this person sends to all these people. So I'm going to harvest this email list and I'm going to send a virus out to everyone on that list. And they're going to think it's from this person. They trust it. They're going to click on it and open it. So we had that running rampant, and it had nothing to do with anything that I did. So be careful with that. Just because you get something from someone, if it doesn't seem right, and I even talked to one of our people who deal with transportation, they were expecting an invoice from a transportation company. And the invoice came in, but it wasn't really the invoice. It was from the bus company, but it was a virus. So you can't really trust anything. You know, check at the bottom, like this one that I sent down in the signature line, it had a different address and a different phone number. So someone would have diligently looked at the email. And I know we all get so many emails, we don't have time to look at all of those things, but still boils down to diligence. Taking that little extra time can save you a huge nightmare in the future. So some rules to follow. Just know who you're disclosing to. You know, does Joe have the right to this? You know, should I be sending it to Joe? Only send the minimum information necessary. Maybe all you need to do is send the PASecureID. PASecureID by itself is not releasing information unless someone has access to the PASecureID system, and only certain people should only use it for the right purposes. So if you're communicating about a student, if all you send is a PASecureID and maybe their initials are the first and last name as a check, then you don't have to worry about things as much. Do not ever include sensitive data in an email unless you have an internal secure email system which you verified by your IT folks. If you're sending it from District A to District B, it's certainly not secure. So what you need to do, if you're sending information on a student, put that PII in an attachment that you have encrypted with a password. Word document, PDF, etc. And if you're not sure how to do that sort of encryption, talk to your IT folks and learn how to do that. But then don't turn around and send a second email with the password. And I know a lot of people do this. But what I've learned in some trainings that I've been at, if my email account's been compromised and someone's getting all my emails, well, they're going to get email number 1 with the PII in it, it's encrypted, and they're going to get the second email that's got the password. So it's useless. The encryption that you did was useless. So send the password, call them, text them, give it to them in person. If you exchange information on a regular basis with someone, come up with a prearranged password. And I'll talk about that in passwords here in another slide. But reminder again, lock your computer. Don't disclose or display your passwords. A password's really great if you have it taped on the front of your screen. That really helps. That's like leaving the keys in your car. Okay? Do not do that. Once again, be diligent if you're using public Wi-Fi. Use strong passwords. Don't use password 123. Use uppercase, lowercase, and I'll show you some examples when we talk about passwords. And rotate your passwords. Don't send screenshots with PII. If you're looking at the PAsecure screen and PAsecureID screen, and you're trying to work with a district on something, you take a snapshot of the screen. It's okay to send it to that person, but encrypt it first because that's got PII on it. You do not want to send that without there. All of us have probably 50 different passwords on different websites we go to. And I know we're not all good at this. I know I'm not good at it either, but you really should use a different password for different sites because if one of them gets compromised, they could compromise. If you use the same login and password for everywhere, you could encrypt, you could violate multiple sites. And always encrypt files stored on external media. I've said this before. If you're putting things on a flash drive or a CD for backup or for transport, make sure the file is secured on there as well. Some other things, always be careful when opening emails. Usually just the fact of opening an email is not a problem, but if there's a link or an attachment, big red flags. If it doesn't seem right, you're not expecting it, don't click on it. When in doubt, contact the sender, not just reply to their email, give them a call, because if someone has hacked their email, they said, yes, this is legit. No, it's not. Give them a call. Somehow reach out to them and say, hey, did you send me this? And make sure that's that. Same way, links and attachments. Those are usually where the bad stuff comes from. By clicking on a link that takes you to a malicious site or clicking on and opening an attachment that's got malicious code built into it. Remember, always use caution. If you're going to a website you're not sure about, it may look like it's a legitimate website, but it could not be. If you're not familiar with it, stay away from it. Secure your devices and your paper files. Keep your computer software up. This usually falls on the IT department, but sometimes, you may get a prompt, you want to update this. You should update Windows updates, Microsoft other updates, any other software you use, because there's always new bugs that people find in this software. Keep it up to date. Once again, follow your local protocol. Most IT departments kind of do that automatically. But if you're your home, your personal computer, make sure you do that, especially if you do work from your home personal computer. Remember, if you do any sort of work on your home personal computer and there is some kind of data breach, you can come in and take your computer, bless you, and make sure that everything is okay there. Don't open attachments or click on links unless you're expecting it. Bless you again. When in doubt, call. Be especially careful of exe and zip files. And if you have one of those common passwords that people use or something like that, if one of your staff member leaves, no matter how much you trust that person, change the passwords. It is for their safety, protection, and for yours. If you have a change in staff, there's a common password that people use to get some kind of a shared drive or whatever. If you have a staffing change, you need to change the password. Especially if someone leaves on, not the best of terms. But even if it's the most trusted, the friendliest departure, as a good security practice is change the password. And once again, never, ever, ever, ever tape your password to your computer. Let's leave the keys in the ignition in your car. Just don't do that. None of you ever do that, do you? No. Okay, some password best practices. Again, I can't stress this enough because I see it in my daily work. Never tape your password to your computer. Don't keep it near the computer. Now, if you have to write it down for some reason, keep it somewhere separate and try not to write it down exactly. I know what I do personally. I have a code for my passwords that if someone would happen to get a hold of my password list, they could type in what I've written and they would never get anywhere. But I know that this means something else. So that's a good way to do it. Use strong passwords, uppercase, lowercase, numbers and special characters. The longer, the better. Some websites only allow a certain length. Some might not allow special characters, but if you can do it. And then consider a passphrase. So you see all those numbers and letters up there. And if you read that correctly, it says, I love data 3/2019. But the O in love is a 0. It's got upper and lowercase. The A's in data are the at signs. And then the 2019 is actually shift 2019. So that's the way that maybe you can remember it without having to write it down, but someone who's trying to crack passwords can't get to it. That make sense? So change your passwords frequently. Don't use the same password for the past 10 years. Suggest 60 to 90 days. Again, stressing, do not use the same password for everything. Do not hand your password to anyone. Okay. Depending on your local policy, if for some reason a trusted technician needs to get your password for some reason, when you're done, change the password. It's not that you don't trust them. It's just a good security practice. So try to not give it out, but if you get into a situation that your work computer and they have to get into it and you have to give them the password, when they're all said and done, change your password. Okay, another video, which we won't take the time to do today, but I want to have a resource. It talks about the things I did with email, another very good video. And if you click on this picture on the PowerPoint in the PDF, it should take you that, or you can type in the website there, and it helps you reinforce the things I said about emailing things to do. Again, because we email so much stuff, I want to reiterate, do not send any PII in an email. I repeat, do not send any PII in an email. And I bet most people have done this. Hopefully they stop doing it, but some people may still be doing it. Always review your emails for PII. You may not even be thinking that what you're sending is PII. But say, oops, I really shouldn't send that. Check, make sure you're sending to the right people, especially if you're sending CCs. You might have meant to send to Jane Smith and you hit Joe Smith, auto-filled correctly. Don't rely on yourself for do that. Double check, make sure your distribution list is correct. If you're sending a file, make sure you're sending the right file. If you're supposed, if this person's supposed to get Susie Smith's file and you send Steve Smith's file instead, you've just disclosed information incorrectly. So make sure you've encrypted it, but if you send the wrong file and they have the same password, you've just done a data breach. Once again, if you are sending an attachment with PI, make sure it is encrypted. Either use some kind of predefined password or send it via different manner, text, phone, yell down the hall, whatever it is. Reminder again, if staff leave, change the password and change your passwords on a periodic basis. Once again, think about it. Do I really need to send this? Is it better to take the file folder and walk it down the hall to the person? think about what you're doing. We use email. It's such a convenient tool, but it can be easily breached for data. And once again, because of the situation I mentioned earlier, if you send something to a lot of people, you might want to consider sending it as blind carbon copies. That way, if someone intercepts that email at some point, they're not able to harvest that email list. So when you do that, because I've started to do that with some of the things that I'm doing because of what happened. So then just when you start your email, say, dear, who the group is. That way people know that it's meant for them, but you've not disclosed everyone's email address for someone to harvest. Hopefully that makes sense. So to review this, hopefully after I've rambled on here, you understand what a data or security breach is, and including some definitions. Know what is classified as personally identifiable information. Know what your role is in data security, and understand some best practices and procedures to protect it. You reiterated a lot of the things there, but I think they were all very important. Hopefully you leave here with a better understanding of what to do and also what not to do, and then know who to contact for more information. Department of Education has their Privacy Technical Assistance Center. That's where those videos came from. This is contact information for them. So if you want to look up something, or if you run into a situation, you can call them or email them. And then once again, my contact information, if I'm not absolutely security expert, but I can give you what I've learned in my many years, we won't say how many, of doing things like this. So with that, I think we're ready for the Q&A part, see if there's any questions that have come up, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll stop sharing. Okay. So we'll wait till it gets posted up there so I can read it. Dead silence. I could sing, I could dance, but then people would leave for sure. Okay, we have a question from IU5. It's a comment. So IU5, do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
You can go ahead, Vaughn. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. So from Northwest Tri-County IU, they're saying the BEC 24, blah, 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 I won't go into that. Enrollment of students, prohibited requests. A school district or charter school may not request or require any of the following: a social security number, the reason for a child's placement, if not living with a natural parents, child or parent's visa, agency reports, or except in limited circumstances described in the next section, court order, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a good point. I mentioned about social security numbers. That's why we don't track them anymore. And as Tammy has pointed out, there are other things that you're prohibited. You can't ask for you can ask for their residency, but you can't ask for their legal status. Okay? So, and hopefully we don't lose this because it's battery.
Thanks, Vaughn. I just wanted to put that up there because in discussions with a couple of our local LEAs, they actually still had some of that information on their on their enrollment. Sorry, what's on the camera is hilarious right now. Because they still had some of that on their enrollment forms that they were asking for, like social security number and things like that. And so I just wanted to put that up there so that anybody listening was aware that there is a BEC that prohibits them from asking certain things. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Tammy. Very good point. And there was another comment in the back channel. Everyone is stressing the longer your passwords are, the better. And that's why I mentioned the passphrase, to remember a 20-character password. But if you do it in a way that it's a phrase, not necessarily a paragraph or a sentence, but, 20, 25 characters in a phrase that you can remember, and then you tweak some of the letters in there so they're numbers or they're shifted and some are uppercase and lowercase. That's something that's easy for you to remember. Do we have any other questions? We had a question locally. You're supposed to post it. I'll ask your question for you, Heather. My understanding is this. The question was, should we be emailing names? And with the programs that I deal with, we do not email names. We might just say a first name. If you're doing a full name, I would not do that. Send the PASecureID by itself. If you need to send names, put it in an encrypted file and send that. Because unless your internal email is secured, which some you have to talk with your IT folks, that it is protected, I would be cautious. You know, you use just a first name and their PASecureID, because the other person at the other end should have access to PASecureID. But yeah, that's the problem. What happens from going to your desk to the other person's desk? It goes out through the ether and comes back. Once again, that's a question for your IT folks. If you have a secure intra-district email and they're telling you that it's okay, then you can follow their lead. They run that risk. But I know when the folks that I deal with, we do not send names via email. Okay? Thank you, Heather. We have nothing else. I think I'm going to end this session. I thank you for bearing with me here. We'll turn it back to Greg so he can wrap up the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Vaughn. That was very good things to remember. Coming up next month, we have topics listed on the screen for the May DQN meeting, talking about prior year collections and PIMS changes and special ed end of year updates. Want to make sure, remind everyone we are collecting feedback for our 1920 DQN meetings. We're going to be working on planning those this summer, and if you have any ideas, please provide those inputs to your IU point of contact. If you can do that today, great. If you think of something on the way home, please send them an email, and they'll collect that information and help us plan. To wrap this up, if you could please complete the feedback for this meeting, help us improve the meetings and serve you better. Again, there's the URL. It's the tiny URL, DQN and APR 19 feedback, or F feedback. So with that, that wraps up the April meeting. Thank you very much for attending, and we will see you all again in May.